Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Southern Cross University's Open Day for 2023. Thank you for joining us for our panel for Science, Marine and Environment. My name is Gurpreet Singh. I'm a student ambassador here at Southern Cross University, and I'll also be the host for this panel session. These panel sessions are really designed to share further insight into studying at Southern Cross University, and particularly this degree that we offer here. So today I'm joined by a student ambassador here and a current student, Charlotte. We have Professor Nigel Andrew and Professor Brendan Keller here to share. We're going to ask them a lot of questions, go into a bit more of a deep discussion about the course and what it offers. So what I might do first is just quickly get you guys to provide a little introduction about yourself and your connection to Southern Cross University. And I'll start with you first.
Hi, I'm Professor Brendan Kelleher. I'm a Professor of Marine Biology. I've been at Southern Cross University for about 11 years and I work over at the Marine Science Centre. And if some of you are planning on doing the tour to the Marine Science Centre, I highly recommend it. It's a gorgeous spot and probably one of those motivations. If you did want to study here, working at the Marine Science Centre is a really good reason.
Hi, I'm Nigel Andrew. I just joined SCU in January, so I'm a newbie to SCU. I was up at University of New England for 17 years before I joined SCU. I'm an entomologist, so I study insects, and I'm based at Lismore, so I'm the chair of science. So I sort of help manage the staff and the students in science. And I also sort of look after the Bachelor of Science degree that a lot of the students currently are studying in.
Awesome. Good morning, everyone. I'm Charlotte. I'm one of those students studying the Bachelor of Science. So I am in my second year of the specialisation, that's the double, so the Earth and Environmental Systems and Marine Systems.
Thank you, everyone. It's really good to share a little bit of insight about what you currently do and your connection to Southern Cross University. So I'm going to start this panel session off by asking our faculty members just to give us a bit more of an overview of what the Bachelor of Science here at Southern Cross University entails and what types of specialisations you can potentially do with the degree. So.
Okay, on to me. Yeah, so it's the Bachelor of Science. That's the primary undergraduate degree which students will sort of enrol in. And there's the double degree, obviously, that Earth and Environment and Marine Science. There's also a Marine Systems specialisation. There's an Earth Systems specialisation, a Forestry specialisation, and a Regenerative Agriculture specialisation. So in terms of those specialisations, the Marine Systems one is one of the biggest ones, obviously, in the COFS area, and also the double specialisation, where you get to sort of move between marine systems and also the broader environment. The Regenerative Agriculture specialisation is the only one in Australia. So a lot of the background to that is that a lot of our agriculture is, based on broad-scale agriculture, but regenerative agriculture is bringing in sort of a lot of the ecology and a lot of the environment with our agricultural systems, and that's moving forward. That's a really core area about how we need to start thinking about growing our food, managing our livestock, and looking at how, but essentially, the paddocks interact with the forest, and actually the how things interact with each other. Just because there's a barbed wire fence doesn't mean there should be a change in sort of how a paddock should be sort of managed different to a forest system. And so that's how we're thinking at Southern Cross. There's forestry as well. That goes into a lot of the classical sort of management of eucalypt forests in state areas, but also, again, going on to agroforestry, looking at rehabilitation of forests, are really important, rehabilitation of degraded lands, and also, for example, with the bypass, going through COFS at the moment, how do you rehabilitate the lands after that? There's really important aspects of forestry. How do you manage the forests once a big impact has occurred? So that's where that sort of information comes into play. We also have majors. So the specialisations are where you can really go into depth in your degree and actually really focus on a particular area. Majors are more classic style of degrees where you can actually have a biology major or a chemistry major or a mathematics major and pair them together. You can either do them individually or as a double major, or you can also include other majors from other parts of the university. So they're a bit more like Lego blocks, where you can connect together a core part of science and another part together, or another part from the university, and they're also they're another way of developing your degree.
Yeah, awesome. So it appears the degree is quite a flexible. You can really take it where you want to really go with a career, or if you have a career aspiration, you can kind of tailor the degree to that need. Is what I'm getting from that information.
And absolutely, a lot of the way that we try and we understand that when students come into a degree, you have a way of thinking, but once you start in that degree, being sort of exposed to different ideas and ways of thinking, you might want a different path as well. So a lot of what we try and do, particularly in first year, is to try as much as we can to keep a lot of the units very consistent, so that if you decide to change, it is relatively easy to do that. So if you come in and want to go down a particular path and you say, oh no, I want to go into a different area, it is relatively easy to do that. Rather, you're not locked in if you choose to change. That's one of the key things as well. There is flexibility there.
Yeah, so that was going to bring me on to my next point. In how does the actual course structure work? Do students do a lot of core units, in the first and second year of study, and then end up, if they decide on a major or specialisation, in their last couple of years of studies, or does it, you can really tailor with that?
Yeah, it's a bit of both of that. So there are core units that you're doing in first year, and a few in second year, and a few in third, depending on the specialisation. There are option units. So that's where for example, in marine systems, you can get to choose a range of different units you have an interest in, and that enables you to, particularly in second and third year, to choose which areas you have an interest, but still learning sort of fundamental, important aspects of the area. So you're learning fundamental parts of science, but you're doing it in a way that you're using examples where you're interested in as well. So you gain the best of both worlds. You're learning the fundamentals, but you're doing it with examples which you have a particular interest in.
Awesome. Thanks for that information. I'm going to move on to Charlotte and just ask, why did you want to study what you're currently studying here at Southern Cross University?
Awesome. Well, I wanted to study this, probably the classic story, ever since a kid, been interested in the environment. I've done a bit of work with Landcare, and now I work as an aquarium guide at the Marine Centre, and I think that just started the ball rolling. And when I did see the Marine Centre and see all the job opportunities, it kind of helped push me into the direction to know that there are plenty of job opportunities in this area. So as I started studying, it's just really, really exciting.
Awesome. And as most of you are aware, that Southern Cross University are very fortunate to have the National Marine Science Centre here based in Coffs Harbour, where you can study the marine systems. A lot of our students will go there for that. So I'm going to open that up for you, that you actually work out of that space. If you could just provide a bit of information about the National Marine Science Centre and how that works in conjunction with our courses.
Sure. The Marine Science Centre was the way it evolved. It was a development of UNE and Southern Cross University that's been taken over Southern Cross University, and they needed to find a location that was close enough to the water to bring in high quality seawater for our aquarium system. And the place they settled on was Pacific Bay, just in the north side of Coffs Harbour, amongst the resorts. So I really get to work in a resort, but don't have to do the resort stuff, which is pretty cool. And I remember I was just talking to Nigel that when I applied for the job there about 11 years ago, I went into the place and just thought, wow, okay, I'm working here. I'm getting this job. Because we literally, we've got a fantastic facility that was $20 million its initial setup, and then it's had another $10 million of investment. It's right by the beach. You're often having lunch on the beach. And being that close to the Solitary Islands Marine Park in itself is wonderful. Just last week, I was teaching the marine megafauna unit. That's one of the units that I teach. We had 30 students out on the point counting whales, and 50 metres off the beach at Charlesworth Bay, which is where the Marine Science Centre, a southern right whale turned up, had its calf, and basically everyone was there to watch it. The only southern right whale calf on the east coast this year, right at the Marine Science Centre, right when we're teaching marine megafauna. Yay!
That's amazing. I guess that's something, often, students talk about that university experience, but having that opportunity to be so close to, to the ocean while studying, if it is marine systems, is an amazing, I guess, I think I want to change over to marine systems here, study the degree. But in terms of that location, is there a reason why that location was selected? Is there something specific about our coastline here that makes, Coffs Harbour an amazing place to study?
Well, it is an amazing place to study, and that's the reason that some of you, hopefully most of you, are aware that the sort of the area directly off Coffs is a marine park. It was set aside by New South Wales as a special piece of coast. Some of you have been lucky enough to dive the Solitary Islands. We all surf and use the beaches. It is a really special place. But in terms of the ecology, which what we're interested in, it's special in the sense that it's that area, it's subtropical. So at the moment, it's receiving it's sort of most influenced as a climate change hotspot. So we're getting a lot of that tropical influence and things are changing. So it's an ideal location to study that change and to understand it and hopefully manage it. Because, across all the degrees in science at Southern Cross, there's that environmental feel. And I think amongst academics, we're in this because we want to leave the world to the future generations, not in the same condition, but better condition than it is today. And some people always talk about the degradation, but there's been some real successes. And as a scientist, I'm happy to be involved in it. And just one of the things we're thinking about, when I was a kid, there were no whales, 500 whales left on the coast. And now you just can't help but see them, 30,000 plus. So it is possible that with good management, that's evidence-based by the sort of science that we're doing at Southern Cross University, at the Northern Rivers campus, at the Gold Coast campus and the Marine Science Centre, that we can actually hand the world on in a better condition than it is today, and that would be amazing.
Yeah, I think that speaks a lot about the university and the direction we're going with transforming tomorrow as our, our motto going forward. And I think a lot of, as you can imagine, with the information we've provided today is showing that these degrees are really hands-on. It has real-world impact, and I think that's really important to note. Just going back to our faculty members again, just to provide a bit more information about the Southern Cross model, which has been something new and introduced, to a university over the last few years, or transferred over now this year. If we can just give a bit of information to some of the audience that may not know what the Southern Cross model actually means.
Yes, so it is a new model, like no other university in Australia is delivering this model, so that's why it's called the Southern Cross model. It's essentially 6-week terms. So if you look at other universities, they use a semester or trimester model. So a semester might run for 13, 14 weeks, a trimester might run for 11 weeks, and they usually have, semesters run for 2 semesters a year, trimesters run for 3 trimesters a year, and the SCE model has 6 terms, 6-week terms. But of those, what it actually is doing is what has been, the evidence base is that over 12 weeks, you have 6 weeks at the start, then you have a 2-week break, and then you have another 6 weeks. And what the evidence has shown is that things go fairly slowly in the first few weeks, then it ramps up, then you have 2 weeks off, and then after that 2-week break, a lot of people actually fall out of their units because they find that it is difficult to continue on. What the Southern Cross model has been developed to help with is that, for most part, the 6-week model is that if you enrol in that 6-week term, you know exactly, you've got a better idea about your progression over the 6 weeks, rather than actually trying to project forward into week 10 or week 11. Once you're doing your work for 6 weeks, it's a short, sharp, intensive period of time, and then you have a better chance of success to actually complete that 6 weeks and do well. Where other universities have found, I know my example again coming from University of New England, is that we have a massive drop-off of student sort of interest in continuing, things coming, like life comes in the way, particularly for students who might not just be on campus but also doing their studies off campus as online students. So this way is when you enrol in a unit, you're more likely to finish it, and you're also more likely to do well at it, because you're more motivated in that period of time. So, and instead of having 4 units to do in a semester or trimester, you only do 2 units. So it's not just trying to pack everything into one term, you're basically just doing 2 units for a short, sharp period of time, and then you can go on and do the next series of terms. Most of the time, even though there are 6 terms throughout the year, most of the units are actually in the first 4 terms. So in the general period, say between February and October, that's when the majority of units are. The summer terms, term 5 and 6, are when you have elective units, or where there might be field trip units, or there might be repeat units. So if you decide, if you're doing a full-time load, which is 2 units per term, that might work for 1 term, but then you might decide, you might have extra work commitments, or you might be deciding to go on a holiday, so you can take a term off if you choose to, and then come back and do another term, or you can just decide to do 1 unit in that particular term. You don't actually have to do a full-time load through all your studies, and it just helps manage time that little bit easier during that period. So I guess that in a nutshell, how it is and how it differs from others.
As an academic who was here before and now teaching in this mode, when they first suggested it, my reaction was, we're going to do what now? Because it did sound a little bit too much, and we're just in our 2nd year of teaching it, and I'm drinking the Kool-Aid now. I'm seeing the benefits for people and the flexibility it's providing people who like to work and do uni at the same time, the way they can take things and not take other things and structure their degree. It's a really, really good system, particularly for students, because it does provide a lot of flexibility, and I think that's incredibly useful. Not all students can devote full time to work. Everyone likes to have university. Everyone likes to have work. There are other commitments with family, and this model seems to be quite flexible in allowing that, rather than the more traditional models that I did when I was at university and that other universities tend to have still.
Yeah, definitely. And going to Charlotte, how have you found, with the increased flexibility, has that helped you learn, engage with, or immerse yourself with the units a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was with Southern Cross when we were doing the 12-week model, and I transferred across to the 6-week model. I have found it's been really nice. For 6 weeks, I can get 2 units done, and then you got a couple of weeks break, and then you're back into it. And I did sign up for full time this year, but coming into term 3, work was a little bit stressful, so I decided to take term 3 off, which that just means I only have to take 6 weeks off and I can jump straight back into it. I'm not taking an entire year, half a year off. I'm really liking it. I'm finding I can really just immerse myself for those 6 weeks. It feels a little bit easier in the regard of just the 6 weeks, that's all your commitment. I don't need to commit half a year to it. But yeah, the flexibility. So I'm trying to fast track my degree. So it is normally a 3-year degree, 8 subjects each year. But with this model, it does allow you to do a little bit quicker. So I'm going to do 10 in a year, which is full time for 5 terms. So that does give a bit of flexibility that some unis don't have, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's really good to know. And in terms of with you studying at the moment, have you had some labs or any cool opportunities that you might have done that you could share some insight about?
Absolutely. So I do study online as I do work, but that doesn't mean that I miss out on the practicals. So I do get to go up to Lismore, but as well as here in COF. So in Lismore, we've got our environmental analysis lab. So I've done some chemistry practicals up there, which has been amazing. So that environmental analysis lab actually took our results from some of the experiments that we did, and we were able to actually test how well we did with our experiments, to keeping something that we started with 100 grams of, put it through a few different states, and then see if we got 100 grams at the end. So that was really cool. But yeah, definitely at the Marine Centre, that's been amazing. That was probably my favourite one so far. Is we've got some bream there, some baby bream. Well, they're 4 years old, but they're about this big, and we actually got to learn how to spawn them. So we're able to kind of sedate them by putting something in the water, then you got to weigh them, and you actually inject a hormone into the side of their actual bodies, and then that gets them into that spawning phase. But I had no idea that that's something you do with bream, and that was really cool to do all of that hands-on there. And probably my other favourite thing was we got to dissect a really big salmon. That was really cool, getting to have that full-on hands experience of like everything in that fish. You don't really get to see that all the time, so that was probably one of my favourites as well.
So yeah, awesome experiences. Unfortunately, we're going to run out of time very shortly, but we have some time for questions and answers. So we want to open up the panel for any questions from the audience. So if anyone does have a question, feel free to speak up, raise your hand, and our panel members are here to help out. Any questions?
So you can do a double major, so you can do applied chemistry and biology.
Yes. Yep. So basically, the thing about the majors, if to do, you can do a single major and then include a whole suite of elective units to fill up that extra half of your time. But you can do a double major. Yep.
Any other questions? Yep, at the back.
Hello. With the marine science related specialisation, how much of an influence would linear algebra and other topics related to maths have on that, actual, if at all, yeah?
So it's interesting in the sense that it can be light or heavy on math depending on what your interests are. One of the units that I teach is drone technology, and a lot of people are looking at artificial intelligence in respect to that, and a lot of the Python involved and coding associated with that has a lot of math behind it, which is really cool. We don't take you there in the degree necessarily, particularly for marine science, but if that is where your interests lie, there's opportunities for people. We always love people who are good at maths and statistics. I've just got a new student, a master's student who's come from Italy, who got his math degree at Imperial College London, and I've got him specifically to be doing artificial intelligence, because what we want to do is use drone footage and then get that to calculate biodiversity, link it up to LiDAR and heat data, and the math behind that is incredible, and I got a dude specifically who can do it. In all of those applications for math that could be there. So if you did marine science but with a math bent, you would be a very desirable student to be doing cool projects down the track.
Yeah, okay. That's good to know.
So we just have, yep.
Back to that drone work. What is that? What do you do for that?
Well, there's probably you haven't quite got to drone technology yet.
Yeah.
So a few years ago, probably about 6 or 7 years ago, New South Wales had a problem, particularly the North Coast. People were getting nipped by sharks. I use the word nipped lightly. We know what it really was. And it was happening much more frequently than it ever happened before. And the government's solution was to go out and kill sharks. And obviously that was not acceptable, so we had to come up with new ways of doing it. And I got into drones because we were thinking drones was a way that we could monitor beaches for sharks without impacting animals. And since then, I've really got into drones. And by the way, that program is now been officially taken up by the government. It's run by Surf Lifesaving, and they monitor 52 beaches in New South Wales for about 8 months a year. So if you're in front of a lot of surf lifesaving clubs, you'll see the drone signs, they're flying the drones. I particularly love that because all the video of the animals comes back to me for analysis, which is super exciting, but it's also keeping you safe. Now, drones in themselves, we've sort of opened up a whole range of different things that we can do with them. We've got drones that with LiDARs that can carefully map like centimetre accuracy of the heights of areas, and also in things like flood mapping. We're using drones for looking at novel ways of dealing with climate change, such as marine cloud brightening up on the barrier reef to protect corals from bleaching in extreme bleaching events. A whole range, and we have a subject that's particularly dedicated to drones. I teach it, so I'm really passionate. The drones that we have, everyone who does that subject actually gets to fly drones. So we have drones, we teach you how to fly drones, and you'll get to see some of the research drones. I think our most expensive one now is just over $250,000, and the thing is huge. It's really fun.
Yeah, so again, very hands-on, practical real world impact, and that just goes to credit of what the degree here offers at Southern Cross University. Unfortunately, that wraps up our panel session. We thank you again and our panelists for sharing more insight into the degree.